Great. Well, welcome to another episode of Run, Walk, Talk, Tales of Inclusion and Development. I'm Judy Borovich, and I'm here with Steph Ferdivo, and we are excited for today because we want to share our three favorite books on leadership development. And Steph, we really wanted to focus on books that have had an impact on each of us and our own leadership and our leadership style. And I think that, the books that we've selected are really great for somebody who's maybe starting out in a formal leadership
Mm-hmm.
role.
Mm-hmm.
But, honestly, like any good book, they're good for everybody, I would say.
Oh, absolutely. I think the books that we're going to talk about today can be used, starting out, mid-career and senior, right? You can really sort of, use it. And that's why I actually have a hard copy of the books because I like to sort of put stickies right in them. And so, yeah.
I do.
I
I do too.
Did you have a hard time narrowing down? As you can probably see sort of behind me there, I've got the,
You've
myriad
got
of
tons
books.
of books you love to
Yeah.
read. I
Yeah.
do too. And yes, I really did have a hard time narrowing it down to three. In fact, even for some of these authors, I had a hard time just narrowing and picking one of their books.
Yes.
So I would love to hear from you. What's your first book choice?
Okay. All right. Ready. So, my first book is, can you see this? Jennifer
Can see it.
Brown, How to Be an Inclusive Leader. Now, this is sort of just a logistics one. If you look at it, it's pretty thin. It's 114 pages. Page count for me is important. I joke that it's like 250 is around as a good sort of book, right? 250. What I love about Jennifer Brown's book, How to Be an Inclusive Leader, it really goes through the continuum from unaware, aware, active to advocate. And she really sort of provides the
Mm.
blueprint to be an inclusive leader and gives examples. And I will share this one really great quote. When you're the one with the power, you have a responsibility to think 3 steps ahead for the comfort of others, regardless of your own identity.
I love that. I love that quote.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
Steph, I can't help but think that that reminds me of my first book, if you can
Mm-hmm.
see it,
Yeah, Simon
which,
Sinek.
yes, Leaders Eat Last. And what I love about this book is it really explains what the role of a leader is, which is first and foremost, as he describes it, it's really about taking care of the people
Mm-hmm.
in your care. And so he
Mm-hmm.
challenges
Mm-hmm.
this notion that, leadership is about achieving individual success. I've made it to the top of the organization. I've risen up the ranks. And he really says that, as a leader, you really have an obligation to prioritize the well-being of your team members. So it sort of ties
Mm-hmm.
into what you were saying about your book, where it's not about you, it's about your team.
Yeah.
And what I also love is he speaks about creating a circle of safety for the team where you can
Mm-hmm.
have an environment of trust, where people feel safe and valued. And, to me, he's really speaking about, psychological safety and that onus being on the leader to make sure that it's in place. And I think what really strikes me about this book is it's saying, leadership success is not defined by only delivering financial results. It's also about people results. And what are you delivering in terms of success as a people leader? And what I love is that he also touches on empathy in leadership and really, embracing a purpose-based approach. So I think it's a great, read for anybody. How about
Oh,
you?
yeah. Well,
What's your next?
so my next one is Lead Care Win by Dan Ponifract. If anybody knows, I've had the opportunity to work with Dan and feel very fortunate. He has, written many books. Um, so the first thing is, again, 189 pages. Do you also know how small it is? So again, I know this sounds silly to say, but it's like you can take it to go and I can stick it in my purse or my bag and it's not too
Take it anywhere.
heavy. Take it anywhere.
Yeah, love it.
So this book is broken up into 9 lessons and very practical and no nonsense. And so at the end of each chapter, there's some takeaways. Let me sort of share a few of kind of his lessons. So I'm going to just quickly read sort of the 9 lessons. Lesson 1, be relatable. Lesson 2, play for meaning. Lesson 3, stay present. Lesson 4, remain curious. Lesson 5, embrace change. Lesson 6, dare to share. Lesson 7, command clarity. Lesson 8, commit to balance. And then lesson 9, I think one of my favorites, champion others, right? That again, as a leader, almost that servant leadership, that it's really not about you as you get to that place, and you need to be uplifting others, right? So another really great one that I find I go back to, and also Dan has a new book coming out,
He
which is,
does. He does
yeah.
have, and I'm excited to read that one as well. I'm a fan
Mm-hmm.
of Dan Ponifrax as well.
Yeah.
And I'm just taking everything in my power not to start taking us down a different path and
I
talking about
know.
another book.
Okay, you're number 2. What do you have?
Yeah. So my number 2 book is Brene Brown's Rising Strong, The Reckoning,
Mm-hmm.
The Rumble, The Revolution. And
Mm-hmm.
this is where it was really hard. Well, as I said, hard for us to narrow, I know each of us 3 books, but also it was really difficult to narrow down to just one of Brene Brown's books. And I chose this one. It's not her first book, but I think it's a really great introduction to her work. And
Mm-hmm.
again, at the heart of it is that as a leader, there's going to be failures, there's going to be challenges, and she really embraces leaders as a way to be resilient and get through those challenges, embrace vulnerability. And again,
Mm-hmm.
she speaks about empathy, and that's empathy is a theme that runs through all of her work and all of her research.
Mm-hmm.
And she really says, as a leader, it's important to lead authentically, to show your team who you are. And then again, that picking up that theme that I mentioned in the Simon Sinek book, really fostering this environment where people feel safe, and it's safe to learn, and it's safe to take risks, and it's safe to fail. And what I do love about Brené's work is that she also throughout always weaves in practical tips, which we love, for doing
Mm-hmm.
that. So amazing book, highly recommend it.
And her podcasts, right? Her
Oh my
podcasts are
goodness,
great,
her
right?
podcasts are
Mm-hmm.
absolutely out of this world.
Mm-hmm.
So Steph,
Mm-hmm.
what is your third book? I'm excited to
Okay.
find out.
All right. The Art of
uh
Gathering by Priya Parker. So this one is 281 pages, and that's
that's a
okay.
commitment.
That's a commitment. It's more than 250, but it is so good. And it's interesting. So it's about how we meet and why it matters. Uh, Priya Parker talks about how important gatherings are and creating community, and that it starts, months before your actual gathering. And she gets into sort of, she talks about business gatherings, weddings, dinner parties, all of these things, and how you have to be really thoughtful and intentional on kind of what that outcome will be. And I really find this book is sort of beautiful. She talks about the choice of venue is one of the most important aspects when getting
Mm,
together.
mm-hmm.
And which is interesting because I don't think we really, as leaders, sometimes take the time to think of the experience of our team coming into a gathering, walking through what they see in the room. It's like, I think of all of the senses. Like this book touches upon, smells, seeing,
Mm.
content, sort of speaking, how to close a gathering. Like, she's always like, you never leave it so that it's like you just who knows when the party ends, right?
Yeah.
Like there is sort of a way to sort of do this closure. And she
Oh, I
talks
love
about
it.
kind of rules. I'm going to just share sort of this one thing about rules. So she gave an example about a work meeting. The rules were, I'm here all day for 10 to 12 hours. I need to turn off my technology. I need to agree to be present and engaged. We will have one conversation at meals and be game for anything. And and it's interesting because do we really do that in our work meetings? Maybe a little bit,
Hmm. Hmm.
but not sort of this kind of almost like formalized, like this email sent, like these are sort of the rules for the day.
It makes
So,
such a difference setting those ground rules and making sure everybody's aligned and on the same page.
yeah,
Or it gives people that opportunity to express rules that they would like to add in,
that's right.
or get
That's right.
clarification if something doesn't make sense to them.
That's right.
Now,
Okay,
I haven't
you.
Well, before I just
Oh.
got to say, I haven't read that book yet, and it is on
Mm,
my list, and I'm super excited to do so because it
hmm.
sounds to me like it's speaking about inclusivity and how do we create these
That's right.
spaces where people can
Yeah.
feel they can come together.
Yes.
Um, so my third book is a book that I love, and it's William Urie's The Power of a Positive No.
Mm,
And to me, one of my favorite quotes is, if everything is important, then nothing is important.
mm,
And I love that quote. I think it's so true. And I think for most of us today in the workplace, there's so many competing priorities and it can feel like everything's urgent. And this book, I mean, we can't say yes to everything all the time. And that's true
so
both at
true.
work and in our personal lives. And I know for myself, I can find it challenging to say no. I can feel bad saying no
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
somebody, or I can feel like, oh my goodness, what if I say no and it's a missed opportunity? But we have to prioritize what's important, and that's what this book lays out. So what it really is saying is, you want to know what your yeses are. You want to know what you want to be saying yes to, and that will allow you to set boundaries and actually communicate your boundaries. And then knowing that, you can more easily say no. And he really frames it
Mm,
that when you're saying no, you're really saying yes to something else. So that's something
hmm.
that is of higher
Mm,
value to
yes.
you. And what I
Yeah.
love about his book is, he really encourages people to get clear on what their values are, because that's going to help you know what you want to say yes to, and in turn, what you're going to say no to. And he also provides some really great ways that you can, you know, this is in the, um, sort of subtitle of the book, Save the Deal, Save the Relationship, and Still Say No. So he gives some
Yes.
practical ways that you can preserve your relationships. You're not just kind of necessary. Sometimes you can say no. I mean, I love that sort of saying that no is a complete sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but he gives you ways that you can make sure that you are preserving the relationship so that, somebody doesn't just feel like, nope, and off you go.
And and I like the title of A Positive No because no, I feel like we have been ingrained with no is bad and no is negative.
Yes,
You
correct,
know?
correct.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we're now it's sort of time as I think about we're kind of closing here of what I've learned and I think and sort of action. Maybe I'll kind of go first and kind of
Sure.
share
Yeah.
that the so the Rising Strong, Brené Brown, huge fan, been reading a lot. So probably have all of her books. I do like Simon Sinek, but the Positive No book was the one that really sort of stood out to me because I think I have to, I think depending upon the day or the week, those
Hmm.
boundaries get stretched. And then, you're saying yes to probably more things than you should.
Hmm.
And then, it creeps up on you as you're exhausted or you're a bit angry or you're a bit annoyed. And so I think I need to, pick up that book. What about you?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I love all of your choices, and of course, I love the Dan Ponifrac book and would highly recommend that. I am really excited though to read The Art of the Gathering, and what
Hmm.
you said about the importance even of the venue. Like, to me, just taking that time to think about where are we going to be gathering together. And I mean,
Hmm.
it's interesting because I think for some of us, like I know, Steph, you like to entertain and you
Yeah.
think about where are we going to be seated, and
Yeah.
what am I going to be serving to my guests. You want to create this wonderful welcoming environment. And
Yeah.
so I find that fascinating to think about that in terms of the workplace. Like when we do come
Hmm.
together, whether it's
Hmm.
a weekly meeting or it's a offsite retreat, what are those things we can do to really make people feel that we care about them? It's a way of showing we
That's right.
care.
That's
And I
right.
love that. I think my biggest takeaway is that notion of how do you end a meeting? Because I think sometimes,
Yes.
oh, we're at time. All right, bye. No, there needs to be a
Yeah.
sort of, okay, what have we learned in this
Yes.
session
Yeah.
together? What are we going to go away with? So it makes me think, what can I do in my workplace to build a nice end to the
To
different,
close it out.
to close it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about for you?
Great.
What's your, so that's going to be my actionable
So
item.
that's going to be your actionable.
Yeah.
So for me, one, of course, I'm going to pick up the positive no and really kind of, I think I need to sort of sit down and take stock of what my absolute yeses are and what are some of my
Mm,
nos lately. Maybe it's
mm-hmm.
time to kind of do that. So I'm going to do that over the next week or two.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So that brings us to a close today. Thanks so much. I hope you enjoyed this edition of Run, Walk, Talk, Tales of Inclusion and Development. Until next time, take care. Bye.